Hello and welcome to Higher Ground in Circle Passages. We're going to be talking about art and healing today, and have a co-host. You're not a guest anymore, I guess, right?
I live
but
here.
Heather. Yeah, either one, right? For sure. Yeah. But, we've talked about this often of how, there's so many different ways that art is amazing, right? Or what it offers, what we can do with that, and that part of art and healing. I know had some experience with working with teens and actually preteens who different kinds of diagnoses, maybe depression and anxiety, but how maybe we're not able to have this conversation right here verbally. But through art, it can do something, the individual does something, maybe a painting, some drawing, whatever that might be, whatever the medium is, and yet then we can start talking about that, because it just provides a release. But you've been an artist forever, and I know you do art for many, many different reasons.
Right.
But,
yes. Well, you know what the most convincing thing, and science now can verify that art can reach places, deep core wounds that words can't. And so I think it's probably part of our 95% unconscious, but essentially art can go to places that we're unwilling to go consciously. And so when you're communicating with art, when you're creating, it's really like a dialogue. And so this, at its best, I think art can mirror, show you things, I think with a wisdom and grace that the conscious mind doesn't always have, to help guide you in the healing process. And the best example is my friend who died of a brain cancer, glioblastoma tumor, and she had tumors that she represented as golden eggs in the places, 3 in her head, which was the number of tumors, and then she ended up having breast cancer, and the image I have in my bedroom is the arm with the breast, and gauze was a symbol that she did, and she did these all, maybe 6-8 years prior to actually having the tumors, because it's such a fast-acting tumor, and then that's where I got breast cancer. So there's this kind of, it's a wisdom and a grace, and Jung called it, Carl Jung, the psychologist, the magical value of art. It could touch not only where we have unconscious wounds, our own personal unconscious, but the collective roots that we all draw upon.
Which is fascinating, isn't it? And the wonderful part is that it's to kind of explore and figure out how can we get to some of these points, let's say the wounding or the trauma, without really being able to, or finding the words for it. But how else can we do that? And it does seem like with art, certainly, and that's what I asked somebody who was involved with some trauma. If we can't talk about it just yet, I understand that. Can you draw something or paint something so when you're feeling that anxiety, what does that look like?
Right.
And that's the tough one to ask, is I don't know what it looks like, but actually this person was able to do that.
Yeah.
And that was the springboard then of, can you explain what you did here with the painting and with the drawing? And there it was, so then that kind of opened the door for her to get that, kind of like giving herself the okay. So opening the unconscious.
Yeah,
amazing.
And I did art at the Bellevue Clinic working with young women, but I often will just talk to people, and as they're talking, they're drawing. And so the fascinating example of what you were just saying is, being in that liminal space in between, it makes it easier to talk. And then it also shows you something at the end. Like this person this recently was talking about how, they love their parents, and essentially they feel controlled in different things. And so she did this round pen, I think that's what it's called. So for a horse, the sun is out, it's beautiful, the green grass is there, and she's, trapped or caged or, penned in literally.
Right.
So I just thought it was such a perfect representation of how she felt. But often when you look at that image at the end of a conversation, especially if you're busy talking to the person, it's really revelatory what you look down and you see when you feel into it or look at the symbolism.
Yeah. And again, it's just incredible, isn't it? It's that it's not really a distraction, it's just refocusing, I guess, the energy to be able to, we can still have a conversation, but here's where things are happening, right? Typically, right? And it's like you said, afterwards to see, so it's just what you were talking about, or can you explain that to me? Marvelous way to do it. And here's the vehicle that allows us to do it, is art. Whether it's painting or sculpting, whatever that might be, whatever the medium is that somebody's comfortable with, I guess.
Yeah, and one of the things, probably the thing I do the most maybe, is burning things. I'm not a pyromaniac, but doing art that's ugly. Like people have so many hang-ups. I was listening to Brené Brown, and the thing that students have the most core wounding about and complexes about is art. And so people feel like they're not creative or they're not an artist or blah, blah, blah. And so we have these wounds, and then what's really liberating, and I can watch people who, when they're trying to do art and they think it has to be pretty and it has to be well done or whatever that is, having people do like an ugly picture. And people are just like, they totally know how to do that, And this last time we were tearing them and crumpling them, and then we burn them. And it's just like, it's this way of releasing the impediment of all of that residual trauma from thinking we're not creative because we've been controlled in our creativity.
Yeah, and it's finding a way to get that release, and it's just wonderful that it is done through art of some form.
Right.
And it's what you were just talking about, is saying, in a way, I can't, and then realizing, I can do this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so painful that I'm not an artist. Jung said there was an artist hiding in everyone, and of course we're all creative, but we're denied that, and that's one of the myths, is that only professionals are artists. People are so reluctant to claim that they're an artist, and it's like, everybody's an artist. It's just, what's your art form?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Another time what I did with a group was we had just a regular door, but it had like 9 panes of glass, then a couple of other panels of wood underneath. So just said, we might have had 8 people. So just choose an area that works for you, that you're comfortable with, and whatever it is. And we talked about that too, of course, trying to keep it not too out there, I suppose, in the sense of, I don't know what it would be, but appropriate, I guess.
Trust me, I get it.
But and that was incredible too, because it was actually with 2 groups, and one couple of the group members had Asperger's, so social situations, just the fact that they're in group was fantastic, but kind of working together at this door, it was amazing, because usually I'm going to keep my distance, is what kind of saw was happening until it came to this project. And I don't think the teens realize this, but like one's here and working on maybe an upper part and somebody else is over here, but the proximity anyway was forgetting all about that, being hesitant to, I'm concentrating on what I'm trying to create here, the art itself, and wow, again, just what a cool release, and then get a chance to talk about it later. You know, not to call somebody on it. It's really how wonderful, and it's like giving yourself permission, and that's what's cool, I think, with art in that healing way too, is giving yourself permission to, here's what it feels like, and here's how I can translate that to whatever the medium is.
Yeah, and learning to work together collaboratively. So often when you were talking about that, which sounds like such a cool project, often there's a mandala or a circle with pie pieces, and then sometimes the center can be where, like, everybody has their pie piece, and in the center everyone works together, but it's kind of walking us towards, well, what if we take away this boundary, and what if we take away this boundary? And because it's really our, again, that wounding, that complex about whether we're an artist, are we good, are we this, are we that? And then once people get into it, they're usually, I call it a fish to water. You know, once they become unself-conscious, you know, then they can flow into it.
Yeah, and I guess that must be some way giving yourself permission to, I get this, you know,
right.
Let me just go for it.
And
kind of see what happens. And you were just talking about something too, and I think it's, you know, kind of planting the seed and watching the group members kind of, so where are we going to go with this? When you talk about, you know, the pie aspect of it, and that was always kind of cool too, of the creativity of how can we all work together, and yet, you know, it's not like it's only one person doing this. We're all participating. Again, it's marvelous just to see how all of this just kind of starts unfolding, and just the community that then starts taking place.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I've done a couple of murals where we designed it together and did it together, and I told you about the one with the, it was at-risk teenagers with community youth services, and we started, the counselors and I started before, no one showed up the first day, and they just gave us the what to for, because we put a kayak in it, and they're like, whose reality is the kayak? And it's like, okay, sorry, yeah. But it's perfect, you know, also to give not only permission, but power, the empowerment of you get to have this be your own voice and vision, you know, and collaboration of how do you do this together.
Definitely. So you mentioned Jung, and how else would you describe of what is that providing for the individual to maybe reach someplace within? How would he pretty much kind of play that out with a patient, let's say, or a client? Yeah,
so he walked what he called a path, and it was really an archetypal path, meaning that it's something emergent in all cultures across space and time. So he was returning actually to indigenous cultures, and what he called the magical value of art, meaning more than just art. The limitation we have now is we think of art as sofa art on a wall, art trapped in a frame, this very limited, prescribed sense of what art is. And art is really about liberation and transformation and, you know, like in ceremony and initiation. And so he was going back to some of those earlier concepts of the power of art. And so his word was individuations, but it's really initiation, transformation, leading you on a journey, an inner journey. And that the art, I say it's like walking on painted stepping stones, that the art guides you. Sometimes some other words for it, he called it a picture series. And I've always loved picture series, you know, series work, because you get to evolve that concept, and it's that same kind of path. And the idea is that the artwork works with the images of the unconscious, both personal and unconscious. And so it, like my friend with the tumors, you know, it's going to communicate things to you that you might not go to, voluntarily, but it's going to communicate and initiate you on a healing quest. and he called it a healing and a teaching. And to me, those are really inextricably intertwined. Like when you heal, you can see something. It's revelatory, and you learn. And when you learn, you heal. And it's just, how we walk the path.
Cyclical, yeah.
Yeah. And then the magical part is really, it's the root magi for image and imagination, which is important. But it really is crazy magical. And he called it Promethean. You can anticipate things in the future, all kinds of things I've experienced where one person will draw something that everybody else has, or, just stuff you couldn't know consciously that's tapping into that unconscious, kind of like the roots of a forest with all the trees.
Pretty incredible. And you were just pointing to a drum that, like you were just talking about, as far as that process goes too, because obviously, if you don't mind displaying that.
Yeah. So it is in process. And I brought it partly because Buck was with me for some of this, and you love Raven. So stealing the sun is a local myth that I've always loved. And on this land that we work at sometimes, twice there was a raven that went in front of me, and one time it had this orange, probably a fruit, but it had an orange ball in its mouth, and it was just so much like Raven steals the sun, and I'd been working with that myth, so I made this Raven steals the sun, and my calling on the Rite of Passage, in my name, so to speak, was Daughter of the Sunrise, and it struck me that this is another version, another myth and story that tells that same image. And it's in process, which I love. We do not have enough art as process. And that's what the healing, the individuation is a path and a journey. So it's art. We are the art. We are creating ourselves in this process.
Definitely. Could you turn it to the side so
Yeah.
I can kind of pick that up, or actually along the edges there? Because this is what it looked like, obviously,
Yeah.
that part before you started painting.
Yeah.
So, which is, and then to get that vision is just incredible of here's what is I'm being called to do, is
Yeah.
what it sounded like, getting that inspiration,
Yeah.
Raven snatching the sun.
And the living, breathing hide has inspired me with some of the other work that's behind to do more transparent imagery. Because I just, it's so beautiful, like the grain of wood, the hide, to bring it back to life, resurrect it, and to sacrifice, make sacred, have it sacrifice, have meaning, have it live on in this tool of ritual. So I just want to make sure that I leave all of that visible. So now I'm going to go through and do a very kind of opaque to transparent color so that you can see the hide behind.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's obviously it's evolving. It's not just like, okay, it's done, it's over. It's still happening.
Right, and it's that dialogue. Like it wanted to be broken. The broken symmetry is its own power, and so it wanted to go out to the side, and it's off center. And this one, the earth is upside down. It has a will of its own, and so it's that dance of honoring the will of the image in that dialogue.
And some of the other folks that participated in doing this drum journey, creating this drum, kind of interesting too when we talk about art and healing.
Yeah.
Because there are a couple folks who were going through something right now, and what a wonderful, just to stand back and watch how this is coming to light, I guess, and being created. What a wonderful process. And it seemed like definitely a healing process too, because it's here expressing, here's what's taking place. Because it was on the inside of the ring here where what somebody had done was the serpent, the circle of that. Again, it was just,
Jude.
whoa.
Yeah.
Exactly. So powerful.
And the first electric eagle drum was what I made when I was going through my cancer diagnosis. So kind of the peak apex of my stress pyramid.
Yeah.
And so it was really a ritual act to go through it. And often music, all of the different ways we do, you're our sage master. So we do these ritual acts to deepen into the state. Jung said it required a state of reverie, this active imagination where you're creating art in this ritual sense. And so that's very present in this kind of art.
What's marvelous about that, and pretty obvious, but in this process of creating this, in the healing part of it, obviously, this is, you can keep this. It's if nothing else, it's a reminder of, wow, I was over here at one point, and look at what I've been able to kind of release some things, some energy, again, getting the healing taking place, and you've got it forever.
Yeah, and I'm super excited. I did the Shasta drum workshop as a tool to go out into nature, so kind of healing yourself, healing the earth. Our mater, mother, the same root. And so I thought of it as like an eco-activist tool is how I thought of it. And so I just got invited to a much bigger gathering in Shasta doing drums again. And the director was saying, we've never done any art that you can take home with you. And I'm like, well,
Yes.
Because that's my favorite kind, because you're imbuing the energy of the gathering or whatever it is you're doing into the art. And then art is a memory anchor. So it's talismanic. It holds that energy and reminds you of, whatever it is that you learned on your journey.
And I think what we maybe consciously, unconsciously weave into this process too is, so there were a group of maybe 6 of us who, maybe 8, but the community, and like you said, and I certainly believe that too, is you think this hide is, it's dead, but no, you're definitely bringing it back to life, but it's the community aspect that it's living in this work right here, and times 8, because each one of us was putting a drum together, and just again that aspect of it. So it's continual healing, and just remembering how we all went through this and kind of worked together and encouraged one another, all of those kinds of things. So what a process.
Yeah, as a healing community. And drums are obviously ancestral, ancient, so is community and circle gatherings. And so for all of those reasons, I think it amplifies the healing, and not least of which because right now we just have such a deficit of that kind of communal healing. And so I know both of you and I are attracted to group work because it has that compound energy of group healing. And yeah.
It's pretty incredible, isn't it? Just to witness it for sure, obviously to participate in it too, and offering more of that is what we're hoping to continue, move forward as some of the restrictions kind of ease up a little bit with the pandemic. And hopefully getting into classrooms or into schools, and whatever the actual setting is to be able to, how about if we work on this, because I know we've talked about that in other shows too, just the astounding numbers of kids missing. You sent something the other day, 29,000.
Right, 29,000 missing students.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, that's in Washington. It's like, so where is everybody?
Right.
And then there were a couple of other numbers, and I wasn't quite sure. It was like 27, 28. Are those the 2 previous years? And this year it's been 29? But just the fact that it's even 1, right, is, whoa.
Yeah.
We need to pay attention to what's not happening. And
a circle, we're circle passages and higher ground, but a circle is a safe container, and that's what we really need to do, is kind of circle up, because we are in a crisis, and the youth are really lost. You know, I mean, they're not bounded by any safe space, and so, yeah, the faster we can begin to really take this seriously, the better.
Absolutely. And then if we can, as one of the approaches anyway, is to introduce art in a classroom situation or multiple group settings, let's say whoever it might be, whichever school, and the number of students that they have is those that do want to participate, but kind of providing this as, here's a modality of finding some and being able to heal. And yet you're creating something, so just an incredible combination, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and you know, we have the medicine pouches, and you know, different things that different people can do. Drums are archetypal, so they're in every culture. So, you know, it's also, we don't want to appropriate culturally, but to return to your own roots, your experience. Like, I wouldn't have felt called to do this unless I saw Raven jumping in front of me with the ball. But, you know, to really go within, find your imagery, and then go beyond the bounds of a framed picture on a wall to return to the power of art, which is healing and transformation.
Definitely. Another example, if you don't mind grabbing the rattles.
Yeah.
So, you know, and again, this could be from
you,
putting these pieces together or already made, and then as you can see, you know, there's definitely some stories going on here, but to offer and provide some other art of kind of listening to, what are you calling, how can I help out here, of maybe some imagery on here, whether it's painting or whatever it might be, of, in a sense, not so much just decorating it, but taking it to maybe another level. I mean, it's really cool just the way it is, but something else that we're offering, like you said, the medicine pouches. Certainly, with the drums.
So taking the visions from our experiences, and we do vision quests and different rites of passage, whether they're really short or longer, and then creating imagery on tools. You know, these are tools, ceremonial tools that we can take with us. And every time we work in Jungian psychology, you talk about activating the image. To me, it's so embodied in a drum, but in all of these. And I don't know if you have time can you show us your drum? Because that's such a beautiful example of a symbol story.
Absolutely. You know, I collaborated with somebody, so made the drum, but then Sonia Holy Eagle in Rapid City, South Dakota, agreed to paint this, and it was just so cool that we had a chance to talk about some different kinds of things. She's trying to get a sense of so where we're going to go, because I just said, whatever comes to you, whatever vision you get, please just go ahead and do this. But it was just amazing. It is amazing how it is a living entity right here, but this just kind of took it to a whole nother level. And what she ended up doing, and you won't be able to see all of it, but along the wooden ring right here are some of these things, images, like here's the north. So it was 4 directions, and that's what she was asking me about, and certainly did it. And then I had asked you, this really got, I mean, it just pulled me right in here. And at first I was thinking, well, it looks like an S, so Sonia. Said, it's lightning. Yeah, you said that too right away.
I'm all about lightning, so I'm like, it's lightning. Yeah,
definitely. But what I really enjoyed was the collaboration of putting the drum together, having a chance to do that, and then for her to take it from there. So that was great. Well, we're gonna kind of wrap it up for this show, but actually hoping to come back in and look at maybe part 2, if you would, and art maybe in some other ways of how that comes about. But thank you ever so much.
Oh yeah, thank you, Buck.
Appreciate it. And thank you for tuning in, and hopefully you enjoyed what we talked about today and what you saw. Thank you.